Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be attempting to do a 12-hour readathon. I actually tried to attempt to do a 24-hour one, but apparently I can't sit still and read for a long period of time. And I also just scratched that whole video because my stopwatch that I was using just completely reset for no reason. I don't know why. So anyway, today I'm going to be attempting to do a 12-hour readathon instead. I have two books that I want to try to finish reading within this time period. And the first book that I would like to finish and read within this 12 hours is Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. As you can see, it's still sealed. I haven't opened it. I bought this last year for a weekathon, but I didn't get to read it. So yeah, I just thought this would be like a faster read compared to the other books that I have. So that's why I chose this to read first. And then the second book that I would like to read for this challenge is 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. This one I'm not confident in finishing within this 12 hours because it's a classic. I usually tend to read classics very slowly because sometimes the language is just a little bit more difficult to read. Sometimes there's words that I just don't know, and so I have to look up some words. And yeah, I'm not confident in finishing this. So yeah, those are the books that I'm going to be trying to read within this 12-hour readathon challenge. Anyway, let's go ahead and start the challenge. Before I start the reading challenge, I just want to show you the bookmarks that I chose for my books because I like to match the bookmarks to the books that I am reading. So for Arsenic and Adobo, I chose this bookmark that I have here just because it has very similar colors to the book. So yeah, this was the only one that kind of matched the book. So yeah. And then for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the bookmark that I chose for this one is this one. It says, "I'm sailing through a sea of words." And I just thought it fit really well with the book being underwater theme and stuff. So yeah, I just thought it fit really well. So yeah, anyway, that is it. That's all that I wanted to share. So let's finally start this reading challenge. Oh my god. Yo, the racism in here. Oh, bilo-bilo. Gusto ko din. everyone. I'm taking a break from reading because it's currently 6:16 p.m. and I'm hungry and I want to eat dinner, so I'm taking a break. I just finished chapter 32, so now I'm on chapter 33. I'm on page 226, so that's pretty good, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm almost done actually with the book. I'm just like, there's just a little bit more. So this is where the stopwatch stopped. So I've read for 4 hours, 18 minutes, and 51 seconds. So yeah, I think I'm going through this book pretty quickly. I think I'll be able to finish this tonight and then get started on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So yeah. And also, for those who are curious as to what I'm listening when I'm reading, I like to listen to this Spotify playlist. It's called Ambient Relaxation. So yeah, it's really good. I personally just don't like listening to songs with like words with lyrics. So this one is just all like instrumentals and like ambient music. So it's really good, in my opinion. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and eat dinner and I will be right back. So it is currently 10:20 p.m. and I finished the book, and I finished it in 5 hours, 28 minutes, 26 seconds. Hello, good morning. It is the next day. I'm sorry if you guys can hear the construction outside. So I finally finished reading Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. Okay, so my thoughts on this book. I really liked it. It was really fun to read. I did not expect it to be as lighthearted as it was, considering that this is like a mystery crime fiction book. So it's very interesting reading about a Filipino character, because there's not really that many, especially in like, I guess, like international books. I'm just happy that this exists, and also very interesting to read about a Filipino American, because usually the Asian American sort of books that I've seen have been like Chinese American mostly, and then there's also like Vietnamese American. So it's nice to see a Filipino American story. Again, it's interesting to read about a Filipino American because I'm not Filipino American. It's very interesting to read about that whole culture. I don't even know if it's culture, but like that whole life as an Asian American, specifically like either like a first generation or a second generation Asian American. I think it's very interesting because even though you are like, in terms of ethnicity, you are Filipino, but you're not really like Filipino in a sense where I don't think you can relate to a Filipino person living in the Philippines, if that makes sense. I feel like you can only take so much of your culture with you, but it's gonna get like westernized, Americanized. Anyway, as I've said, it's just interesting reading a Filipino American's perspective. So yeah, anyway, moving on. So the things that I liked about this book is that there's such diverse characters. Like there's a lot of diversity in here. There's a lot of BIPOC characters, which makes me so happy because you don't really read a lot of them that often. So I'm so glad to see that. And I also really like how there's so much Filipino food in here. It made me so hungry while reading this. Specifically, a lot of Filipino desserts, which I love. I have a bit of a sweet tooth, so reading about them just made me so hungry. I also love that there's recipes in this. Let me go ahead and find it. So yeah, page 301 at the back after the acknowledgements. There's recipes. I love that so much. We've got apparently it's pronounced Lila instead of Lila. I've just been pronouncing it as Lila, but apparently Lila. So we have Lila's ube crinkles recipe, Derek's salabat spiced banana bread, which is Filipino ginger tea inspired. I've never heard of this. I've never eaten a salabat spiced banana bread before, but it's interesting. And then we also have Lola Flores Minatamis na Bao, which is coconut jam. And then we have Tita Rosie's chicken adobo. And then we also have at the end, after the recipes, we have a special preview of the sequel, which I want to get because I enjoyed reading this book. This was a fun read. And as I've said before, I love mystery, so this was just super fun. And yeah, it's a lighthearted book too, so that's another thing that I enjoyed about reading this. So yeah, I had a lot of fun trying to figure out who the culprit was, because the whole journey to finding out who this person is was a journey. So yeah, it was just a super fun read. I love the story. I love the drama. I love the friendships, the friendship drama, the romantic drama. I did not expect there to be romance in this. I did not expect it. I won't spoil anything, but there's some romance in here. Romance drama. It's not even a lot, but because you have the nosy titas, the chismosa na titas, who are always trying to like set her up with someone. So yeah, I don't know why I did not expect there to be like a little bit of romance, especially because of it says here in the back, the group of matchmaking aunties. I don't know why I didn't expect any sort of like romantic thing going on, any romance thing going on. But yeah, there is like a little bit of it, but you don't really get into it much. You get introduced to who they are, and like there's like a little bit of drama there too, but it doesn't really go further with it, so maybe it will in the next book. I don't know, but overall I really liked this book. I highly recommend you also read it. So yeah, I will get the sequel when I can, because I'm currently on a book buying ban, so I can't buy any more books until I read 8 books. I made myself like a little rewards system to give myself incentives to read more this year, because I do have a reading goal of reading 20 books this year. So this is currently my 5th book, so I just need to read 3 more books and then I can buy another book. Good morning, everyone. So I haven't been able to read that much. I'll show you where the stopwatch ended. So I've only read for 10 hours, 7 minutes, and 29 seconds so far. So I'm gonna read for the next almost 2 hours so that I can finish this 12-hour reading challenge thingy. So I'm not far along with this book. As you can see, I'm still like a third of the way there. I'm definitely not gonna finish this book in the next almost 2 hours, but I'm still gonna try and read as much as I can just to see how far along I will get to. So as I've said earlier in this video, I read classics pretty slowly. Yeah, this is a very slow paced book, and I've also just been finding it a lot more difficult to read because there's a lot of words that I do not know and a lot of like scientific words of like scientific names of stuff. I'll talk more about it later in the video when I talk about like my final thoughts and stuff about the book. So yeah. Okay, so that ends this 12-hour reading challenge, me attempting to read for 12 hours. So I did not finish this, but I am closer to being halfway through the book now, which is good. So I just finished chapter 23. So I'm now on chapter 24, page 178. So that is how far along I am in this book. I'll probably film the next clip tomorrow, so I'll be giving my thoughts and opinions and stuff, things that I found interesting with the books, things that I liked. So yeah, I'll be sharing more stuff tomorrow. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next clip. Hello, so this is going to be the final portion of the video, so my final thoughts and stuff. So I'm going to be talking about 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea first, and then I'll share like my overall thoughts on this like challenge thing. I don't even know if this is even considered a challenge what I did, but I tried. So for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, as you guys can tell, I'm not yet done with the book. I'm almost halfway. According to Storygraph, I'm 46% of the way through the book. So, as I've mentioned previously in this video, I read classics very slowly, just because of like the language and stuff, and I feel like I have to really take them slow when I read them. So yeah, that's why it took really long just to get this far into the book. So, if I recall correctly, this took me around like 7 hours because I remember starting the timer at around like 5 hours and however many minutes for this book. I don't know if I was able to film these parts, but I was like searching, like googling definitions of like certain words while I was reading this book because there were just a lot of words that I didn't know, and yeah, I just had to search them up because I had no idea what they meant. And I also had to search up the word rent because when I was reading it, it didn't make sense in my head because based on the context, it meant like a tear or like a rip. And apparently there is a definition for the word rent for that. I remember I searched up words like firmament and like scintillate. Like I've never heard of these words before, so I had to search them up. Another thing with this book is that Jules Verne like lists a lot of scientific names for stuff, like for organisms. Like there's a lot of like long lists of like underwater organisms and like plants and stuff. I just didn't bother searching those up. But yeah, I'm definitely enjoying it so far. I'm curious what's gonna happen in this next half of the book because so far things have just been pretty meh. Like I don't know, I guess the last part that I read there was like a little bit of like some exciting thing that was happening, some little conflict thing, but it was very short-lived. So I wonder what's gonna happen in this next half, because so far things have been pretty smooth sailing for the most part, and yeah, there's just like a lot of things to like marvel and like look at, because you're like under the sea and you get to see all of these underwater things for the first time, and it's just like super cool, super like magical to see like what is like going on down there. So yeah, it's been very cool and very interesting. So yeah, I've never read anything like underwater related, underwater explorations, anything of that topic. It's pretty cool. It's pretty fun. So yeah, I'm also wondering if any of like the math and like the science stuff in here are like, I'm just wondering if there's like any truth to it, or if there's just some partial truth to it, especially when they're like calculating like distances and like the size of things. Okay, so for my thoughts on the challenge as a whole, I guess I knew I wasn't going to be able to finish both of these books because, like I said, I read classics very slowly. I was surprised to have read Arsenic and Adobo pretty quickly, in my opinion. Even though this is like a medium paced book, I feel like this leans more towards fast paced. So yeah, I think that was why I was able to read this relatively quickly. So yeah, it was just really interesting when I would like look at the timer and see how far I would get along with this, and I would like compare the two. I've also realized that I actually don't think that I read slowly as I thought I did. I think I read relatively like at a normal pace. I don't even know what's considered normal, but it's definitely not fast, and I don't think it is slow as well. Yeah, actually, I don't even know. This might be all just like relative and subjective, but I guess what I've realized is I don't read as slow as I thought I did. So yeah, that's the conclusion of this video. And I don't think I've mentioned this in the previous time that I spoke about this book, but I feel like if you're an Asian American, I think you would relate to this book more than a Filipino person. So yeah, I don't think I mentioned that earlier. So yeah, I'm just glad that there's more like Filipino representation in like the international like book world. There are books here that talk about the life here in the Philippines, life as a Filipino person, but it's not really well known outside of the country. It's not really well known to international readers. And because this is published in the US, there's more exposure to it because this is from Penguin Book House, I think. It says Penguin Random House at the back, so yeah, I feel like there's just more exposure because it is published by like a well-known established like publishing house internationally. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing this challenge because I was just really curious to see how long I read books, because like I said, I thought I was a slow reader, but I actually don't think that I am as slow as I thought. So yeah, it was just really interesting to time myself and to see how long I would read a book. And from what I've gathered, if it is like a fast-paced sort of book that is around the size of this and like has a similar, I guess, word count to this, then I would probably read them between like 4 or 5 hours. And then if it's going to be like something like this, which is like a classic and has like over 100,000 words, I think it's over 150,000 words, this one. So I'm definitely going to be reading this a lot slower because there is a bunch more words and it's also slower paced. So yeah, anyway, I don't know how to end this video, but that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and found it interesting. Again, thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.